Hey guys, we're going to do Math Review 3-5 right now. So we're going to start with the same thing as before, talking about an equation, and this is about division. So the equation should have something divided by something equals something. So the first thing is I'm going to give you the stars for the division symbol and the equal sign like before. If you look at this model, you can see that you have one hole in the first group, one hole in the second group, one hole in the third group. So that's 3 holes. So my dividend is going to start with a 3. And in each group you have 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you have 9/10 total. So the dividend is going to be 3 and 9/10, and that's going to be the first star for the actual numbers. The divisor is going to be 3 because you're dividing by 3 groups. So that's going to give you the next star. And then your quotient is how many you have inside each and every one of those groups. So inside the first group you have 1 whole and 3/10. So that's going to be your quotient, 1 and 3/10. That's the last star for the equation. The key idea is to remember that an equation must have an equal sign, and if you have that, then you give yourself a star for that. So again, we have 6 stars for this problem. The next problem is multiplying equations, multiplying decimals with an equation. So let's go ahead and write down the equation for this multiplication problem that's being modeled. So again, like the division one, we're going to say something multiplied by something equals something. The multiplication sign will give you a star, and the equal sign would give you a star. If you look at the first section that's in blue right here, that's going to be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows. So the first factor represents 7/10. So that's my first factor there in my equation, and that gives you a star. The second section, the yellow one, is over here, and you have 4 columns. So that's going to give you 0.4 or 4/10 as your second factor. That's going to give you the next star in your equation. And finally, your answer can be found right here in this section where the green is. Yellow and blue mixed together, and they cannot connect to make green. So you have 4 right there, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on the right. So you have 4 times 7. That's going to be a total of 28. 28, and there's hundreds because each one of these little squares represents 100. So the product is 28 hundredths, and that's going to give you the last star for the equation. The key idea, once again, is an equation must have that equal sign because of the word equation. So that's going to give you the last star for that problem, and that means you have a total of 6 stars also for this problem. The next problem is dividing decimals, and we're going to start with putting the dividend inside the division bracket, which is 47 and 9/10, and the 6 is my divisor. So each part of those gives you a star. So now we're going to start by moving the decimal straight up into the quotient. That's the first star that you would get for the quotient part. And then we'll start dividing. So 6 cannot go into 4, so I'll go ahead and put a 0 on top, and that's going to give me a star if you have that 0 there. Then we're going to move on to the 7, so that makes it 47. So 6 goes into 47 8 times. 6 times 8 is 48. No, that's too much. So it's going to have to be 7 times. And 6 times 7 gives me 42. So I'll give myself a star for that 7 on the quotient, and then I have to subtract 42 from 47, and that gives me a remainder of 5. If you have that subtraction, give yourself a star for that. The next number that we have is a 9. So we're going to drop it down, and that gives you 59. So 6 goes into 59 exactly 9 times because that's very close to 59 without going over. So there's my star for the 9. 6 times 9 is 54. And when I subtract, I get a remainder of 5. And if you have that subtraction, give yourself a star. So since we still have a remainder, we have to add a 0 inside my dividend, and that was going to give you a star as well. Now that 0 has to be dropped down, and you end up with 50. So 6 goes into 50, this time will be 8 times. And if you have the 8, you give yourself a star up there in the quotient. So 6 times 8 is 48, and when you subtract, you end up with 2. And if you have that subtraction, give yourself a star. Notice that you still have a remainder, and we have two digits behind the decimal. So we have to add another 0 so we can maybe round if we still have a remainder after this subtraction. So the second 0 also gives you a star because you're following directions correctly. So we drop down the 0, and that makes it 20. So 6 goes into 20 3 times. 6 times 3 is going to give you 18. So that little star on the top for the 3 in the quotient, it's there. And then I subtract 18 from 20, and now I have a remainder 2. So that remainder, or that subtraction with remainder 2, gives you one more star. And you can probably see that this 3 is going to keep repeating. So you have two options at this point. Do you want to put the bar notation that you should remember, or do you want to round to the nearest hundredths place? For this problem, since yesterday I told you that you could round, I'm going to go ahead and round so you can get those extra stars if you remember the steps from yesterday. So we're going to go ahead and round, and I'm going to give you the star for the approximation symbol. And since we are rounding to the hundredths place, we're going to use the 3 in the thousandths place to tell me what to do. So because the number is 3, and we have the little saying, 5 or more raise the score, 4 or less let it rest, we're going to have to let that 8 in the hundredths place, just let it be, let it rest. So it's going to stay the same. And my final quotient would be about 7 and 98 hundredths. So you'll get a final star for that one. Now what if you did do the little the bar notation? Well, if you did do the bar notation, then your answer should be 7 and 983 thousandths with the bar notation on the top. So if you did that, I'll give you the star for the bar notation instead of this one right here, instead of the estimation, because you didn't estimate. And then for the final whole thing, for everything, you will get the second star as well. So you will still get the 2 stars either way you did it, but you get either one or the other. You wouldn't get both ways. Okay, so in this case, the key idea is going to be to move the decimal straight up. And if you have a key idea, give yourself a star. So let's count the stars real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So you end up with 17 stars total, regardless whether you use the bar notation or you estimate it. The last problem is this one. In the multiplication of decimals with the algorithm, remember that we always talk about multiplying these decimals as if they were whole numbers. So I'm forgetting about those decimals for right now. They're not even there. I'm just going to go ahead and multiply. So if you set it up like this, give yourself a star, and we're going to have a multiplication of 8. 8 times 1 is 8, 8 times 0 is 0, and 8 times 2 is 16. So if you ended up with 1,608, that gives you 1 star. The next step is to put your placeholder, so that would give you a star as well if you put the 0 there, and then you can multiply by 8 again. And because we already did all that, we can just go ahead and mimic the same numbers that we had on the top, which is 1,608. But now we have a 0 there, so for the placeholder, so my answer for the second line would be 16,080. If you have those numbers, then you get a star for that. The next thing to do is to put a plus sign and your addition line at the bottom. So we're going to go ahead and give yourself a star for that. And if we do that correctly, we're going to end up with 8 for the first number. That gives you a star. 0 plus 8 gives you another 8. So that's going to give you another star. 6 plus nothing is 6. This is a really easy problem. And 1 plus 6 gives you 7. That's another star. And then 1 by itself, that's a 1 right there. Now, if you're listening to all my instruction, I'm going to give you 5 Bronco Bucks if you can come over here to me after you watch this video, and you tell me that you know what my favorite keyword for today is. And the keyword for today is going to be snake. So if you tell me the word snake, I will give you 5 Bronco Bucks. Alright, so now here is the next thing that we're going to do. We are going to do the bubble strategy so we can place the decimal in the correct place. So I'm going to go ahead and put my decimal here and also right there, because that's where they were in my original problem. When I do my bubbles, Then I'm going to have a 2 right there, a 1 right there, since I have 2 digits in this factor and 1 digit on that one. And 2 plus 1 gives me a total of 3. So I'm going to go ahead and move my decimal 3 times. But before I do that, I'm going to give you a star for every bubble if you have those correctly. So 3, if you move the decimal 1, 2, 3 times like that, then you would get an extra star for the little swoops if you have 3 swoops, and the decimal goes between the 7 and the 6, and that gives you the last star there. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 stars for today. I think, let me count that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yep, I got 14 stars. The key idea is the same thing as last time. You have to use the bubble strategy. So I'll put it here on the side. Use the bubble strategy. Oops. To place the decimal point in the product. And if you wrote down the key idea for today, you get a star for that. So I guess it's not going to be 14 stars, it's going to be a total of 15 stars. So go ahead and fix that. Okay, so now that we have that, let's go see how many stars we ended up with. We have 6 and 6, that gives you 12. 12 plus 17, let's pretend it's 13 plus 17, so we can have a nice and round number 30. So we have 30 stars plus 15, that gives me 45 stars. But we didn't have, we gave one extra right here, right, when I said it was 13. So instead of 45 stars, we actually have 44 stars. So the total number of stars for today is 44 stars total. And this is your 2 reflection statements, the same thing as yesterday. Tell me something that you changed and why, and then tell me why you're proud of yourself today. Okay, thank you for watching, and don't forget to come and see me if you listen to my instruction today.